Hello and welcome to our third annual Halloween in July. All the money that we are raising from this is going to our diversity scholarships and our other scholarships and grants, where we support horror writers in our genre. So I hope you will, if you have the means, consider making a donation. Otherwise, just sit back and enjoy all the entertainment this Halloween in July can provide for you. This is, of course, an initiative from the Horror Writers Association, the HWA. And I am the Horror Writers Association president right now, Angela Yuriko Smith. And today I'm going to be talking to you about horror and hope, the alchemy of fear and creation. And this is a very personal topic to me because I owe one of those Bram Stokers to this topic. So if you are in a safe place, I want you to close your eyes for just a minute. I mean, again, don't do this if you're driving. Don't do this if you're grocery shopping. Don't do this if you have an axe murderer in your house. But if you are in a safe place, close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. I want you to imagine you are in a horror movie. The shadows are lengthening. The music swells. And something unseen lurks just beyond your vision. Your heart begins to pound, and you brace for the worst because you know. And then, against all odds, you survive. That moment, that thing that you feel when you've survived, this is the essence of horror. It forces us to confront fear, to stare into the abyss, and emerge stronger. This is very important for us right now. And what if I told you that horror is not about despair, but about hope? Horror movies and stories and books are actually tools that build resilience. They foster empathy and they teach us how to survive in dark times. Today, I'm going to talk to you about that strange and beautiful relationship and why creators of all kinds are more important now than ever. So, I found horror. How did I come into horror? I found horror probably in first or second grade, and it was in the pages of Theodore Sturgeon's short story, Shadow, Shadow on the Wall. It changed the trajectory of my life. In fact, this is not the same book that I read, but the story meant so much to me. I went and tracked down the book, the Alfred Hitchcock anthology, where I first read that story from a library. And I tracked it down so I could keep it because this story meant that much to me. And why? I was going through tough times as a kid. And this story, even though it was a horror story, and yes, it was dark and terrifying and it scared me, but it was also honest. It was raw, it was real, and it told me I was seen. I was not the only one going through what I was going through. It didn't lie to me. It didn't tell me everything was going to be okay. In fact, in the story, it's kind of not. But it did tell me I can survive. And that was enough for me. Since then, horror has never failed me. It's been my shadow, my shield, my torch in the dark, lighting my way and showing me where monsters might be hiding. Very important. So, that's how I got into horror, but let us find out a little bit about the science of horror and resilience. Science backs up what horror fans have known forever, and that is that horror equips us for real life stress. Now, they did a study in the National Center for Biotechnology Information, NCBI, that found that horror fans, especially those with what's called morbid curiosity, curiosity about death, showed greater psychological resilience during the COVID-19 pandemic. Excuse me. Why? Why would this be the case? I feel like anybody watching this probably knows, but it's because we all know that horror is mental training. We role play fear, we simulate danger, we imagine the worst, and then we figure out how to make it out alive. Watching horror is like a rehearsal for chaos. So imagine yourself in your worst nightmare, but this time you're ready. You've practiced. You don't freeze. You act. That's not fear, that's courage. That's hope in action. This is what it looks like. So, how is horror a training ground for hope? Because horror is not about wallowing in fear, it's about overcoming it. Facing fear on our terms is what horror is about. It gives us the tools to face fear intentionally. Just like exposure therapy, horror desensitizes us not to cruelty, but to helplessness. When we read horror, when we watch horror, when we experience horror, when we play horror games, we learn how to respond and not freeze. Horror also makes us empathetic because we inhabit both the hero and the monster. Think of Frankenstein, the Babadook, Get Out. We see we see the pain and the misunderstanding and the trauma, and we learn not to ask, what is this monster, but why is this monster? And that's what empathy is, being brave enough to look beneath the mask, beyond the horror, excuse me, and see the why of something. So now, again, if you're in a safe place, if you're not in a safe place, please do not close your eyes. Let's try something. I want you to close your eyes again for a minute and be the survivor and think of how that feels. And now be the monster. And what do you see? Maybe the real terror isn't a creature, it's isolation, grief, injustice. What's the antidote to all that? Hope, understanding, connection, kindness. This is what horror teaches us. So essentially, horror is a guide to survival and strength. Horror fans don't just watch bad things happen. We're preparing, we're adapting, we're surviving, we're learning. And often this is called the final girl mindset. What I mean by that is the final girl at the end of the, I don't need to explain that to you, you all know this. But think about that final girl, the last one standing in so many horror films. Or guy, I'm going to say the final girl or guy, final human. They're not the strongest. They're not the most adaptable. They're often the outsider, the outcast. But in the face of fear, they stay calm. They think clearly. They learn fast. And they survive. That's the horror mindset. Strategy over panic. Curiosity over paralysis. Resilience over despair. This is why I'm a writer and not a speaker. So, like I said, it's often the outsider, the outcast. And I find that horror people, or Halloween people, as we like to be called, thanks to Kevin Whitmore, we're often the misfits, the weirdos, and the ones who don't quite fit the mold. And because of that, we learn to build better molds. We make room for everyone at the table. Queer creators, BIPOC voices, disabled artists, neurodiverse thinkers. We're not ageist. We understand what it means to be the other. And we tell them, we tell ourselves, you're safe here. We're safe here. And that is horror at its most powerful. Not exclusion, but in inclusion. So the power of art in all mediums. Of course, horror, we're horror writers. So we tend to think of horror writing as on the page. In this book, this is horror writing. But horror writing and horror is so much bigger. Of course, we know this. It goes to audio dramas, it becomes movies, it becomes what our society learns from. We become the soul of a society. So I want to talk about horror as something bigger, not just horror, but art. So whether you, however you can create, and this is also speaking to the parts of us that don't stay just in horror. Whatever we are creating, we don't have to be trapped. Whether we write, paint, dance, photograph, perform, sculpt, if we can create anything with our hearts, including our horror, we're doing sacred work. Art, at its core, is defiance. In the face of everything terrifying, in the face of war, corruption, climate collapse, genocide, inequality, all the things. I'm sure you have your own list. I don't have to recite the list. But what do artists do when this happens? We make. We make things. We witness what's going on. We remember and we communicate that. There's a painting by Picasso called Guernica. It didn't stop the bombing of Spain, but it did show the world the truth. It screamed when the world was trying to stay silent and ignore something. And that is how valuable we are as horror writers at the forefront of this moment. We don't flinch. Artists cannot flinch. Our creativity is not frivolous. It's a form of resistance. Our voice is not optional. It's essential. And your art and my art and all of our art, it becomes a refuge and a warning and a rallying cry, something that unites us. So when we say horror is hope, what we're really saying is creation is hope. Art is hope. So I know right now there's many scary things in the world, and it's tempting to look away, to scroll past, to say, I'm just a writer, or I'm just one person. But silence is also a story. And it's one that gets written whether we want it to or not, whether we have any say or not. So if you're watching this, I urge you to write your truth. Draw it, sing it, film it, sculpt it, scream it in color, in ink, in shadow, in light, however you can get it out there. Make your art, make your creation, make your horror. Art does not fix the world. Please don't think I'm saying that, but it remembers the world and it dreams a better world into being. And we, the creators, are the midwives of those dreams. We are those that usher in those dreams. So the good news is, because you're watching this, you know you don't have to do it alone. This is the Horror Writers Association. We are a community of horror writers. In horror, we know the lone wolf is usually who gets eaten first. The survivors find each other. Community is how we last. It's how we amplify marginalized voices. It's how we keep going when the work feels too heavy. It's how we keep from being isolated, how we keep from being that first person that walks into the haunted house alone and is trying the basement door and we're screaming, don't open it, and they do anyways. Community helps us to come down to the basement together and fight monsters together. And it's how we remember that we need to make things at all. Community reminds community to keep creating. And right now, we really need to be creating and we need each other more than ever. So I urge you to support one another, share resources, celebrate your wins. This is not a time to be separated or isolated. Mourn together, collaborate, create, let your work echo in the voices of those around you. Because hope, like horror, is contagious, and the future belongs to those of us with a voice. So I want to go back to where we first began. Imagine you're back in that horror movie, and yes, it's terrifying, but you've trained for this. You know the exits. You've studied the monster, and you're not alone. You're not just a character in someone else's script. You're not just a protagonist in someone else's story. You're the author of your own survival. You're the author of your own story. Horror teaches us to endure. Art teaches us to transform. And community teaches us to do it together. Fear is inevitable, but hope is a choice. And every time we create, especially in the dark, we are choosing hope again and again, and forever and ever and ever. So I hope this has encouraged you to keep creating, to find your community at the Horror Writers Association. We're here. We're the Halloween people. We embrace you. You don't have to go it alone. And if you do have the means, I hope you will dig a little bit into your pocket and share some of that with us so that we can share it with others and keep the horror genre alive and the hope of many. Thanks.